Welcome to today's Explainer. So let me ask you a question right out of the gate. Have you checked your phone since you started watching this? Or, maybe you even felt that weird phantom vibration in your pocket? Well, today we're investigating the invisible forces keeping us totally glued to our devices. We're taking a deep dive into the hidden mechanics of our everyday apps, uncovering the intentional design choices, and, quite literally, the biological hijacking that happens every single time we unlock our screens. It is a fascinating, if maybe a little terrifying journey into the modern digital landscape. Let's get into it.
Have you ever meant to check just one single message or look up one quick fact, and then suddenly you realize you've completely lost an hour of your life to the void? Yeah, we've all been there. The universal shame of doom scrolling at 2 a.m. Okay, let's dive into this, because as we'll see today, it's really not your fault. The system is rigged. Your attention is a highly lucrative commodity. Actually, scratch that. It's pretty much the most valuable resource on the planet right now. Tech companies are literally competing for the waking hours of your life, and the environment you're interacting with has been meticulously engineered by some of the smartest people in the world to capture and hold your gaze at absolutely all costs.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, the infinite scroll trap. Second, deceptive design patterns. Third, the digital slot machine. Fourth, rewiring your brain. And finally, breaking the cycle. Section 1. The infinite scroll trap. Let's start with the invention that fundamentally changed how we interact with the internet. Before 2006, the web had natural stopping cues. Think about it. You reached the bottom of a page, and you had to make a conscious, active decision to click next. You had to actually ask yourself, do I want to keep reading? Well, Infinite Scroll wiped that out completely. What seems like a harmless, super convenient little service is actually a highly efficient mechanism. It's a JavaScript plugin designed to remove absolutely all friction. By taking away that conscious choice, it ensures that algorithmically predefined content is streamed constantly, effortlessly, and endlessly straight into our brains. You go from being an active participant to a totally passive consumer.
In the words of Asa Raskin, the mathematician and dark matter physicist who actually invented Infinite Scroll, brilliantly illustrate the gravity of the situation. He said that one of his lessons from Infinite Scroll is that optimizing something for ease of use does not mean it's best for the user or for humanity. He created it simply to cut interaction costs and improve user interfaces. It was meant to be helpful. But today, he deeply regrets the consequences of his creation. It's almost like a modern-day Frankenstein's monster. It is turned into an invisible finger that fuels information overload, anxiety, and a truly unprecedented time suck for billions of people.
Section 2. Deceptive design patterns. Now, the Infinite Scroll isn't acting alone. It's just one tool in a much larger ecosystem of manipulation. Researchers from the University of South Australia released a comprehensive report called Patterns in the Dark, where they extensively documented what they called deceptive patterns or dark patterns. And listen, these aren't accidents or just bad coding. They're deliberate, manipulative tactics specifically built by software developers and psychologists working together to trick consumers. We're talking about things like artificial scarcity, when a site tells you only one room left to induce panic buying, or Roach Motel subscriptions that are incredibly easy to sign up for but require a phone call and jumping through a million hoops to cancel. They exploit our fundamental human cognitive biases to gather our data and keep us engaged against our own best interests. 95%. Just let that sink in for a second. The crucial point here is the sheer scale of this issue. According to the research, these deceptive emotional manipulation tactics are present in a staggering 95% of the world's most popular mobile apps. You're interacting with these manipulative designs almost every single time you pick up your phone. This isn't just some fringe tactic used by shady websites. It is the literal industry-standard playbook for keeping you locked in. Section 3. The digital slot machine. So to understand why we just can't look away, we have to look at the work of behavioral psychologists like B.F. Skinner. Back in the mid-20th century, Skinner conducted famous experiments using what we now call Skinner boxes. He discovered operant conditioning, and specifically the variable ratio reinforcement schedule. That's a psychological technique where a behavior is rewarded, but only after a random, totally unpredictable number of actions. A pigeon pecks a button, and sometimes it gets a pellet, sometimes it doesn't. Psychologists know this as the absolute most addictive reinforcement schedule in existence. It hijacks the mammalian brain perfectly, and it is the exact same underlying logic that powers casino slot machines.
Consider the contrast here. Imagine if every single time you refreshed your feed, you saw an incredible post, or you instantly got a like. That's continuous reinforcement. And surprisingly, your brain would actually get bored super quickly. You'd drop the app and move on. But variable ratio reinforcement keeps you guessing. Sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get a massive social reward, a viral post, a message from a friend. That unpredictability creates a really high, steady rate of persistent response. You are effectively pulling a digital lever every time you swipe down, just desperately hoping for the jackpot.
And this brings us right to the mesolimbic dopamine pathway, your brain's reward circuit. When you swipe or pull to refresh, you initiate a vicious dopamine cycle. You perform the action, and then comes the anticipation. The loading icon spins, and here's the wildest part, the great irony of this whole shebang. Neuroscience shows that your dopamine spike is actually highest during the anticipation phase, right before the content actually loads. The waiting is literally more addictive than the reward itself. When you finally get that social validation, the dopamine drops, immediately triggering a craving to do it all over again. The algorithms are acting as a highly personalized digital drug.
Section 4. Rewiring your brain. Over time, this digital drug doesn't just change our daily habits, it structurally and functionally alters our biology. If we look at the clinical reality of what researchers call problematic social media use, the comparisons are pretty eye-opening. When we look at dopamine dysregulation and the loss of impulse control, excessive social media use looks virtually identical to substance abuse and gambling disorders. Because of the constant overstimulation, the brain actually downregulates. It reduces the availability of D2 dopamine receptors to protect itself. This creates a severe reward deficiency. It's exactly why putting your phone down to read a book, do the dishes, or just sit quietly suddenly feels agonizingly boring. Everyday life just can't compete with the algorithms.
And the neuroimaging goes even further, showing actual structural changes. Let's slow down here for a second, because this is pretty serious. Chronic overstimulation from these deceptive patterns can actually reduce gray matter volume in critical areas of the brain. A reduction in the prefrontal cortex literally erodes your willpower, your attention spans, and your ability to resist the urge to check your phone. Changes in the amygdala lead to emotional dysregulation, meaning you get anxious or irritated way faster. And changes in the striatum shift our behavior from conscious, goal-directed choices to mindless, compulsive habits. Your brain goes on autopilot, and for sure, not in a good way.
Section 5. Breaking the cycle.
Look, the system may be rigged and the science might sound super alarming, but we are absolutely not powerless against it. You can start taking back control of your cognitive health today. Step 1 is cutting the trigger at its source. Disable your notifications. Don't let the app tell you when to look. You decide. Step 2 is practicing mindful scrolling, being hyper-aware of exactly why you're opening an app in the first place. Step 3 involves setting hard boundaries. You can use app blockers like Freedom to enforce time limits. Because let's face it, our own willpower is honestly no match for a team of Silicon Valley psychologists. And finally, consciously prioritize offline activities. Replace screen time with physical activity or time in nature, which research shows actively protects against these negative mental health effects.
And if you want to completely break the infinite scroll trap, you have a nuclear option. You can dive into your phone or browser settings, whether you're on iOS, Android, or Chrome, and disable JavaScript entirely for specific sites. Because Infinite Scroll is a JavaScript plugin, turning it off stops the endless feed dead in its tracks. Now granted, websites might look like it's 1999 without JavaScript, but you've forced the internet to give you back your natural stopping cues. You win back your peace of mind.
The digital slot machine only works if we willingly keep pulling the lever. Every single time we engage without thinking, we feed an industry designed to harvest our attention. And your attention, it's the most valuable currency you have. It is literally your life. So armed with the knowledge of how your biology is being hijacked, what choice will you make right now? Who are you going to spend your next hour on? Them or you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.